next skill I want to teach you is called active listening. Many people tell me they've heard of this way of communicating, but few couples I know use it when they're trying to resolve conflict. And I think part of the reason for that is that when you're arguing with your partner, it's very tempting to fall into the trap of trying to get your point of view across and ignoring what he or she is trying to tell you. What I find is that it's often the partner who says, "He never listens," that doesn't really show great listening skills either. And remember, listening is not just about having words go into your ears. It's about demonstrating that you have heard or understood what your partner is trying to tell you. And you do that by reflecting back what they have said to check for understanding. Let me explain what's important about this. In an ideal world, the person speaking would say exactly what they mean, and the listener would then hear it perfectly. But as you and I both know, we don't live in an ideal world. We live in a world where messages get distorted. And that can be for many reasons. For example, our experiences, our family of origin, our culture, different emotions like fear, and other factors like tone of voice. These things influence the way that we listen and talk. And because of this, there's a danger that when we listen to our partner, we start to make assumptions about what we're hearing. And then we respond to those assumptions, which may or may not actually be accurate. And we all know what happens next. Conflict escalates, and then we start responding emotionally rather than rationally. And once that emotional part of our brain, which is the limbic system, starts firing, the more rational, logical part of our brain, which is the frontal lobe, is less active. So the discussion is no longer constructive. It's just about expressing unpleasant emotions like hurt and rejection. And unfortunately, that's where many couples start to say things that they don't mean, but once spoken, they can't be taken back. So at this point, you might have that feeling of, how did we get here? It seemed like everything was okay one minute, and then the next minute, you're both feeling angry and disconnected from one another. So this is where active listening comes in. To avoid making assumptions and reacting to something your partner may not have even meant, clarify what you're hearing first. Let me give you an example. If your partner says, "I don't want to go to Mum's barbecue on Sunday," and you think she doesn't want to go because she doesn't want you to socialise with her family, check your assumption in a non-accusing way. You might say, "I could be wrong, but I was just wondering if you don't want to go because you don't want me to socialise with your family." Now she might respond, "Not at all, I just need to get my washing done." And that might be the case, and that's fine. Or if it is true, she might say to you, "Actually, that's true." And that can lead to a discussion on why she doesn't want you to socialise with her family. But at least then you know what you're working with and what you're talking about, rather than talking about one thing but meaning something else. And we've all done that. So active listening works like this diagram. Person A is telling person B about a circle. However, person B sees the circle bigger because of their past history with circles. So person A clarifies that the circle is smaller, which enables person B to see the sort of circle person A is describing. Person A also sees the circle as blue, but person B has always seen the circle as green. So as you can see, neither of these people is wrong because circles come in all sizes and colours, but they just both have different experiences with circles. So I realise this is all a little bit abstract, so let me give you a real life example. Mary says to Bob, "I don't want Susie and the family to come over this Sunday." Bob replies, "You don't like Susie?" Mary says, "No, I just need some downtime. I'm tired." Bob might say, "You've had a lot on and need to take a breather." And Mary replies, "That's exactly right. Thanks for understanding." So what Bob and Mary are doing here is clarifying why she doesn't want Susie and the family to visit, rather than Bob assuming that he knows the reason why. Another example is Joe, who says to his fiancée Felicity, I don't want to get married in a church. Felicity finds it really hard to hear that because she's always imagined getting married in a church. But instead of telling him that right away, which might shut Joe down because he wants to please Felicity, she decides to explore where Joe is coming from first using active listening. Felicity says, "You aren't religious and don't want to get married in a church." When Joe sees Felicity trying to understand him, he opens up more. "That's right, honey. I'd feel like a fake or a phony if we got married in a church because it's a place that I've never really felt comfortable in." Felicity replies using active listening. Getting married in a church would not feel authentic for you, and that's why you'd rather get married elsewhere. Now Felicity is starting to understand Joe better, and they can start to have a dialogue about how they both feel about the situation. And in this situation, they will need to come to a compromise because they want different things. So again, active listening is not about agreement. It's just about listening for understanding so that both people have a voice rather than trying to push your point of view across in a sort of tug of war. Let me show you how active listening and iMessages can work together. Your partner might say, "I'm working back tonight." Sounds innocent enough, right? However, if he's been working back a fair bit and you feel distant from him, you could hear this statement as a kind of rejection because you think your partner is trying to avoid you. So you could reply with an I statement like this. "When we spend time apart, I worry about what you're feeling. I would really like it if we could talk openly about where we're both at." Now he might say, "Look, I just have a lot on at work, that's all." And that could be true. But if there's more to it, having heard your invitation to talk, he might take that up later and talk to you about whatever's going on for him. So active listening and I statements are not a magic wand or a guarantee that you're going to get a great response from your partner. They're just a way to communicate that avoids blaming and making assumptions that may or may not be true. They're also a way of demonstrating that you're committed to healthy communication despite the choices that others might make. The hope is that when your partner sees you trying to communicate in a helpful way, they'll respond to your attitude rather than whether you get it perfectly right or not. So give it a try and be graceful to each other as you learn to put into practice new skills and ways of communicating and trying to resolve conflict.